Robert Vincent O'Neil, Film Mania, Take One.
There's Jimmy, thanks for coming.
Happy birthday, Robert.
Well, thank you. I'm only 90. I don't even worry about it.
Just a kid.
Just a kid, right? You look beautiful.
Oh, thank you.
I was very proud of you. You know that?
You were? Why?
What you brought to that character.
Oh, thank you. What
Yeah.
did I bring?
Very, 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 very proud of you. I thought that, you know, after the pilot, we ended up, because of you, we ended up with the series.
Well, I don't know if it was because of me. I could say because of you, we ended up with a series. Because, you know, if it ain't on the page, it ain't on the stage or the screen.
That's
or
right.
YouTube.
Yeah. It's gotta be on
Well,
the
you're
page.
so spry at a young 90. Look at you.
Yeah.
Jeez.
Yeah. I don't feel 90, not at all.
Good. Well, of course, you know, we don't, well, yeah.
Yeah. Can you see our partner there, Joe Cala? You see him?
I do. Hi.
Hello, Jamie. Nice to
But
meet you.
Who's Bunny?
Bunny is my
you're-
wife.
Yeah,
I'm
because
just Bunny.
this is a podcast, so his picture shows Bunny Cala, and I kind of like thinking of you as a Bunny Cala. It's
They call me Mr. Bunny.
You know, that show started off with, I don't know how to, like a thin thread, like it didn't exist.
yeah.
And suddenly we had it. But I mean, I'm telling you, to get it started, there was nothing.
Yeah,
there.
I was actually curious. You know, I mean, of course, I know my story of how I got cast, but what's the story of how you came to write that show?
I gotta think about that.
You know, David Gerber produced, and it was ABC.
Yeah. Oh God, now I remember David Gerber. I had an interview with him, and he was from New York, and he had a strong New York accent. And to tell you the truth, I couldn't understand a word he said. I'm leaning in all the time like this, and I'm leaning in, and my eyes are pinned on his lips, right? I just didn't understand what he said. And then, but he brought the idea. Oh, I know what it was. I told him the idea of you being in a beauty parlor with your hair in rollers, right? And a sheet over you, and you look through the window and you see some car parked in front of a bank with the exhaust, the winter exhaust coming out, and you put two and two together in your head that the bank was being robbed, right? And without saying a word, you got up with the smock around you, the lady was doing your toenails, right? And you walk out with wet toenails into the middle of the street, and you start blowing all of these bank robbers away. I pitched that just like that to,
Well,
to what's his name? To Gerber.
David Gerber.
Right. He picked up the phone and he called somebody at the Universal Towers, the top of the towers, right? And he says, "We're coming over right now," right? We got in, jumped in his car, a Rolls Royce, and we drive into Century City, into the towers. And we go into this guy's office. I forget who his name was. He drags me in, right? And he says, "Tell him what you told me," right? And I told him about how you're getting your hair done and nails done and you blow everybody away. And the guy looks at me for a long while, doesn't say anything. I'm wondering what I did wrong. And he picks up the phone, and we're coming up to see you. Now we're going up to the top of the Black Tower at Universal. We're seeing Robert Harris, head of the studio. And he says to me again, "Tell him what you told me." And I told him. And that night I went home with a contract.
Wow. You know, that scene you described, and if people are listening, they can find it probably on YouTube, the opening to the movie of the week, Lady Blue. It was a movie of the week. Actually, we went on against Dustin Hoffman's filmed version of Death of a Salesman.
Right.
And we killed him because, you know, who else but me, theater nerds like me, would be watching Death of a Salesman on
It was one of my
Friday
favorite,
night or Saturday night.
right, one of my favorite plays, and I had
Right.
directed that play, you know.
Oh,
and,
wow.
and it was one of the best things I'd ever done in my life.
Oh, sure. Yeah, it's
Against
brilliant.
myself.
But that TV movie ended up really getting high ratings, and that's how we ended up going to series. But that opening that you created is what everybody remembers, and that's the reason it went to series. Thank you very much for telling it was me, but it was you. It was that scene. And for those of you who don't know who David Gerber was, he created a lot of iconic 70s female-driven cop shows like Policewoman,
Yeah.
and he had this one of the first African-American helmed, other than like Julia, but he has been called Get Christy Love, which is a fantastic sort of 70s, just groovy female-driven cop show. So you know, that was he came from. He also did a series called Police Story, but that scene. Sorry, that scene is what everybody remembers, because actually Lady Blue puts her wet toenails with cotton between them into her boots and storms across the street with her barber's cape flapping and clips in her hair. And she just, of course, you know, it takes her nothing. This little red-haired girl just completely explode everything. And then she comes back in and she takes the boot off, and then the toenails are all mangled with the cotton, and it was just, that's the scene that made it a series.
All right. You know what else happened after that? I mean, Gerber loved that. Okay. They had another director. They had a director for the first episode, and I don't remember his name, but he was a famous director, and he did a lot of TV. For some reason or another, he was unavailable. On my resume, it showed that I had directed a couple of things, plays.
Hey, Bunny.
Right?
Bunny. Keep it down.
So suddenly,
Sorry, wait, we'll take a moment just to keep you posted. Joe, I believe his name is, just telling Bunny and the grandchildren, I guess, who are visiting, to stop talking. So
yeah,
we're back to you. We're back to you, Robert Vincent O'Neil.
So I didn't think that I was going to direct anything. You know, we were just getting the show made, right? And they lost this director. He was the guy that directed all the time, go from one series to another series. And they lost him. And he looks at my resume and he sees that I had done some directing, plays.
Right.
Not TV, plays.
Right.
But I had directed TV, it just wasn't on the resume. And he said, "You're it." Right?
Wow.
And so we go in production, and I remember the day that we were shooting an exterior with the downstairs basement or something, went down below the sidewalk. And he realizes that what he's reading is that I had directed a play, but not TV.
Mm-hmm.
And the next thing I know, he's on the set. He said, "You've never directed TV?" And I said, "No."
Very different.
He almost fainted, right?
Yeah.
So now I've got him on the set like this.
His arms are crossed, right?
Watching me. But that's not the first time that ever happened to me, so it didn't bother
Well,
me.
how did you, you know, it's so long ago, it's over, I think 35 years or something, but I don't remember you directing it. I remember you being on set. I remember you just being always smiling. You were just always so happy to be there and warm, and just always so great. But so how did that episode go for you?
How did what?
How did it go for you directing that episode?
Well, once I got started, that's the whole thing about directing, is that you're thrown into the middle of this battle,
Yes.
action.
Yes.
And the one thing, and I learned this very early with directing plays, and I had fortunately directed a lot of plays,
Mm-hmm.
and that is, you have to decide to do something, even if it's wrong.
Yes. Yeah, right on. We want the captain of the ship. You know, you have to be the captain of the ship.
Captain of the ship, and you got to
Mhm.
you got to set that up right away.
Yes.
Right
How
away.
did you set it up on
I
Lady
walked
Blue?
on set. I didn't know anybody, right? I said and we were shooting with an Aeroflex camera, which I know. I don't know a Mitchell, thank God. And I said, I want a 35 millimeter lens on there. I want an eye height, and I want to pan from that point to that point. And
Wow.
it was all bullshit.
Ah!
In other words, I was willing to throw that film away. It was all bullshit. I did that just to establish who was boss and who was, and I heard.
That's brilliant. Wow.
His name was, shit, it was on the tip of my tongue and I forgot it. A Grip, saying, thank God we got a director who knows what he's doing. And I didn't know what I was doing.
That is wonderful. Wow.
Guys, how was the show received? How was Lady Blue?
Well, as I said, the pilot, which was a 2-hour movie, which they refer to as a backdoor pilot, did great. But then our series was up against a little minor series called Golden Girls, and they killed us. But also at the time, we were, they just killed us, those old ladies. But now, of course, I'm younger than those old ladies, so karma is a bitch, as they say. But our show was the most violent show on television at the time. It was like they were all about it, so violent. And now it's, of course, nothing. I mean, but it's so funny because I was someone who, I'm this red-haired, freckle-faced girl. And at the time I was casting that pilot, I was 25. And I had no physical prowess. I was a dancer, but I didn't do sports. I didn't run, nothing. But I always thought, we want a female Dirty Harry. So give me that freckle-faced, red-haired girl. I'm like, what? What? But David had sorry?
I wanted to call it Dirty Harriet.
Well, yeah, and that was the nickname, Dirty Harriet. But David Gerber had come in to troubleshoot a show called Jessie that Lindsay Wagner, who'd played the Bionic Woman, was doing, and it was having a trouble. So they brought him on, and it was an episode I was guest starring in, and that's where he saw me. And kind of like he did with you, Bob, where he just kind of brought you in. He did the same thing with me. He brought me to ABC after it was already, you guys had already had it, signed for a pilot and all that. Brought me in and just said, this is the girl. And I don't think I did even that great of a job of auditioning, but just the force of his personality.
No,
sorry? I auditioned, but then David really wanted me and they were pushing back a little bit, but he brought me into an office and basically said, this is the girl. And, that was just a different time. I mean, there's a few people who are those kind of showrunners now, but now back then, still in the mid 80s, we still had a lot of those really forceful producers and writers who could really get things done. And it's quite different. It's more corporate now, I think, that whole world. But, what a beautiful time you gave me, Mr. Brilliant Director, Writer, Robert Vincent O'Neil. I mean, really just a pretty extraordinary that I had that opportunity. And just always, those are like some of the most fun times I've had in my whole career, was running around, blowing people away with that gun, whether or not I aimed properly. I always won. It was a very nice memory to always be victorious.
That was a wonderful opening scene.
It sure was, and you did it.
It was a concept Joe and I had, and it was incredible for me to have that concept come to true life, and you just blew the hell out of everybody.
Oh, aren't I so lucky, man? I am so lucky. I have to go. I wish you all the best. I wish you just many, many more. Well, I sign me up for the 100th celebration.
Okay.
I'll have many more filters on my screen at that point. All right. Nice meeting you, Joe.
Thank you
Same here, Jamie.
Bye. Thanks, Steve. Bye.
Thank you.
You look beautiful.
Oh, thank you. So do you. So do you, Joe.
You.
So do you, Steve. Bye.
Joe's ugly. We know that. Joe's ugly.
Hey.
No. All right. Bye, you guys.
Bye.
Okay, bye.